On the 29th of June 2012, Watford were taken over by the Italian family the Pozzos. They earned their wealth with the family business of making tools and are also the owners of the Italian side Udinese, who they've owned for nearly 40 years now. In December 2014, Gino Pozzo became the sole owner of Watford, while his father, Gianpaolo, continued to run Udinese. In the first 7 years of Pozzo rule, Watford enjoyed a lot of success, going from mid-table championship side to established Premier League team and even reaching an FA Cup final. While it's hard to argue Watford weren't trigger happy, it was working, and Gino Pozzo was loved by Watford fans. But since the end of the 2018-19 season, the club's most successful in 30 plus years, things have deteriorated. 12 managerial changes in 6 years have seen Watford twice relegated from the Premier League, finish mid-table in the Championship for 3 years running, and now face an uncertain future. So what next for Watford and the Pozzos? Is it possible for them to turn things around, or is it time for Gino Pozzo to sell up? Let's find out. I'm Ryan Dilks from the second tier, and this is Watford FC, the Pozzo Era. Before we get underway, please make sure you like this video and subscribe for more Championship football content. Prior to the Pozzos coming in at Watford, they were a club not doing very much. They were in the Championship and had 4 successive seasons where they failed to break into the top 10. So they needed to go in a fresh direction, and the Pozzos were more than happy to oblige in that. Just a week after taking over the club, manager Sean Dyche was sacked. Well, you may as well start as you mean to go on. He was replaced by Gianfranco Zola, only the club's second foreign manager in its history, and definitely not the last under the Pozzos. It was very much the Pozzos approaching things the way they wanted to, and part of that approach was complete and utter abuse of the loan system. In the summer of 2012, Watford signed 14 players on season-long loans, 12 of which came from clubs also owned by the Pozzos. It was a tactic which received a lot of criticism but was perfectly legal until the EFL closed that loophole at the end of the season. But it led to Watford seeing immediate success. They finished third in their first season under the Pozzos, enjoying one of the most memorable moments in the history of football in the playoffs before losing in the final to Crystal Palace, a detail which seems to be forgotten by many people. The following season and a bit didn't see as much success for Watford, despite signing 12 players on free transfers from Pozzo-owned clubs, and that gave us our first taste of Watford and sacking managers. Gianfranco Zola was dismissed midway through the 2013-14 season after a run of 9 games without a win. He was replaced by a guy called Giuseppe Cedino, who had mixed degrees of success despite winning 4 of his first 5 games of the 2014-15 season. He resigned following reports that players didn't like his management style. His replacement was Oscar Garcia, who lasted just 27 days before stepping down due to health problems. Billy McKinlay took over from him and lasted just 8 days, the shortest managerial reign in Championship history. That's because Watford decided to replace him with Slavica Jokanovic. And Jokanovic was a big success despite taking over at Watford in October when they had already made 3 managerial changes. They won 19 of their final 27 games of the Championship season and were automatically promoted back to the Premier League in 2015. It was a great achievement, and Watford enjoyed a moderate amount of success in the Premier League. They had 4 seasons where relegation was hardly ever a concern, and that was perhaps best reflected by the number of managerial changes they made in that time. From the start of the 2015-16 season to the end of 2018-19, Watford had 4 managers, essentially a manager a season, which is good going by Watford standards. Slavica Jokanovic didn't make it to the Premier League after Watford weren't willing to match his contract demands. Quique Sanchez-Flores took charge of the first season, guiding them to 13th and then left. Walter Mazzarri came in and had the entirety of their second season in the Prem, but was sacked after a drop-off at the end of the campaign. Marco Silva was next. He lasted 8 months, with form apparently dropping off after Everton approached him for their job. And then Javi Gracia, their longest-serving manager of the Pozzo era, he guided Watford to their highest league finish in 32 years and their second ever FA Cup final. Despite going through managers much quicker than most clubs, it was working for Watford and they were making some brilliant signings, particularly from abroad around this time. The likes of Richarlison, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Jose Holebas, Roberto Pereira, Gerard Deulofeu, amongst many others. But that was mixed in with a solid British contingent of players, the likes of Troy Deeney, Will Hughes, Craig Cathcart and Ben Foster. And Gino Pozzo was adored by Watford fans. They were enjoying their most successful period in decades, and that culminated in them reaching the FA Cup final in 2019. That would turn out to be the peak because it's all gone downhill since then. The 2019-20 season saw Watford get relegated after 5 seasons in the top flight. Despite being the first side to beat eventual title winners Liverpool that season, as well as signing Joao Pedro and Ismaila Sarr, it couldn't stop them going down. There were multiple factors at play, but the main one had to be 3 managers in one campaign. Something that would become a regular occurrence in the years to come. Watford would get instantly promoted back from the Championship after managing to keep hold of some of their best assets from the Premier League, but the following season would get instantly relegated again after another campaign where they had 3 managers in one season. Watford were one of the favourites for promotion in the 2022-23 season back in the Championship, and despite having a side which had the likes of Joao Pedro, Ismaila Sarr and Imran Louza, they finished 11th after another campaign where they had 3 managers in a season. You might be starting to see what I'm getting at here. In the space of 4 seasons, Watford had gone from mid-table Premier League side to mid-table Championship side. In those 4 seasons, 3 of them involved 3 different managers. The hiring and firing of managers may have worked before, but it had certainly stopped working by this point. In Watford's most successful spell in over 30 years, they had 4 managers in 4 seasons. In the 4 seasons following the FA Cup final, they had 10 different permanent managers. It had gone completely out of control, and Gino Pozzo had gone from beloved owner to one who was repeatedly having his decision-making questioned. The 23-24 season saw Watford appoint Valérien Ismaël in what was a pretty uneventful campaign. He would get sacked in March, but actually end up being their longest-serving manager in 5 years. His replacement, though, would prove to be popular. Tom Cleverley was made the interim head coach for the remainder of the 23-24 campaign. He had only retired from playing the summer before and had spent just 8 months in charge of Watford's under-18s, but he did terrifically well initially, only losing 1 of his 7 matches while in interim charge, and that led to him being named the permanent Watford manager. And despite very little backing, Cleverley flourished. Watford spent most of the first half of the 24-25 season in the top 6. He was truly defying the odds, but it seemed that Gino Pozzo didn't think the same way. In January, reports surfaced that Watford were considering replacing Cleverley. It led to huge outcry from Watford fans and even led to the club being forced to release a statement saying it was pure speculation. Whether that's true or not is up for debate. But from that point on, Watford's season fell to pieces. No one won fewer points than them, getting just 4 victories from their final 18 games. Despite that though, the majority of Watford fans were well behind Cleverley. They recognised that the club had to change its ways and stick with a manager at some point. And he was beloved by players and fans alike. So much so that this was a regular chant at Watford games last season. Says a lot about how much things have changed for Watford fans in the space of a few years, that they've gone from this to this. But ultimately, Gino Pozzo proved that he really didn't care what the Watford fans thought, because just 3 days after the end of the season, Tom Cleverley was sacked. The decision was met with such a bad reaction, it forced Pozzo into releasing a statement explaining the move. He said, "I have seen real signs this season that we have the talent within our squad to challenge for the playoff places next season and hopefully promotion. Yes, there has been a lack of consistency at times which saw us drop away when I thought we could be in the top 6, but we have a group of highly talented young players who will only have benefited from the experience of this season and what it means to compete in the Championship." The problem with that statement though is, it was complete and utter nonsense. Cleverley had Watford batting well above their average. They had lost several key players in the space of just a couple of years, and he was only given £2.5 million to strengthen the squad. It led to many tipping Watford to go down at the start of that season. Cleverley was replaced by Paulo Petzolano, a manager known for being a promotion specialist, having done it over in Uruguay, Brazil and in Spain, but he ended up managing the fewest games for a Watford manager since Billy McKinley's 8 days in charge 11 years years prior, amid reports that players didn't like his management style. So we're less than a quarter of the way through the current season, and Watford have already sacked a manager, and it's now the turn of Javi Gracia for his second spell in charge, perhaps ironically the man whose dismissal started this current slide. So what next for Watford? Well, put it this way, I've seen it many times before in the Championship. When a club is on the slide, it can be very difficult to stop. Tom Cleverley arrested that slide despite very little backing, but then Watford couldn't help themselves. The reports coming out midway through the season that they were considering replacing him seemingly derailed their season, and then they ultimately sacked him at the end of the season anyway. At some point, Watford have got to stick with a manager. Simple as that. Tom Cleverley was the perfect man to stick with. It must be pointed out for full clarity, he's not doing very well in his current job at Plymouth, but at Watford he was beloved by the players and the fans, and that goes an awful long way. Would he have got Watford promoted? I don't know, but he was someone who the club could build with instead of ripping everything up and completely changing everything every few months. And when we're talking about Watford's future, we've got to talk about their financial position. Spending on transfers has been seriously cut over the last few years, and parachute payments came to an end last season. They've only spent £12 million on transfer fees in the last 3 seasons, despite earning over £90 million in player sales. So while they're probably not in any financial danger, there's been a clear reluctance to reinvest that money back into the squad. Compare that though to Udinese, who have spent over £80 million on transfer fees in the last 3 seasons. Yeah, feels like one of these teams is getting preferential treatment from the owners. It's seen the quality of Watford's squad deteriorate over time. Yes, there are still a handful of brilliant players there, most obviously Imran Louza, who's still there after Watford signed him for £9 million when they were in the Premier League 4 years ago. But by and large, the majority of Watford's squad is unproven at this level. The bottom line is Watford have had 13 permanent managers now in the last 6 years. Once upon a time, chopping and changing managers worked. It's very hard to argue that it is now. They need to get themselves out of this cycle, because with less money being spent, it feels like Watford are only regressing further and further. Whoever it may be, they need to find a manager and stick with him. But unfortunately, with the current ownership, I just think expectations are ridiculously high. They've said it for themselves when they sacked Tom Cleverley. They're expecting a top 6 finish this season, which I just don't think is realistic with this squad, even if it is with Javi Gracia, who's their most successful manager for nearly 40 years. And ultimately, a leopard never changes its spots, or in this case, a hornet never changes its stripes. But there we have it. This has been Watford FC, the Pozzo era. Do you agree with me? What do you think Watford need to do to turn things around? Let me know in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you particularly enjoy what we do here at the Second Tier, make sure you join our new YouTube membership community, where for just £4.99 a month, you get access to great perks like a bonus video every single week and access to the Second Tier Discord, where you can chat to us and other Championship fans. I've been Dilks from the Second Tier, and a big thank you for watching.